Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Harmony Insights lunch date. My name is Erich Kurschat. I'm the owner of Harmony Insights LLC, a company that allows me to work with organizations and consultants using the DISC personality assessment, a lot of which, as you can imagine, is virtual these days. Everything from the assessment itself to the conversation that we have around that assessment, bringing people together on Zoom for a virtual workshop is all being done online. And I love that companies are embracing those opportunities. You can find out more about that stuff at harmonyinsights.com. I'm also the founder of the HR Hot Seat Inclusive Mastermind community, where we have a whole bunch of HR professionals solving common challenges that they face and connecting with each other, connecting with the inspiration to do their best work, with the resources, all for free, all online these days. And you can create a free profile by going to hrhotseat.com. You've joined us today for a lunch date, something I started doing in April just because I needed to shift gears a little bit with how I was nurturing relationships and serving my network. And it kind of stuck. I go out, as people know, and I choose my guests, and my guests choose our topics. And over the last few months, people just started showing up in droves for these conversations. I think because people really crave meaningful, actionable, inspiring conversation these days. I think it's something that's always valuable, but especially over the last few months, people have really been wanting to do their best work and take a break in the middle of the day and hear something entirely different, perhaps, from what they're focusing on. And that's what we provide here. My lunch date today is somebody that I have been so excited to feature over the last few months. I featured her partner in crime late in May, and today it's going to be Wendy Dailey. Wendy, welcome to today's Harmony Insights lunch date.
Hey, thanks for having me, Eric. I'm so excited to be here and see so many friendly faces. I think that's what makes this even more fun is seeing folks that I haven't seen in a while and be able to have the conversation with you and share it with them. I think this is going to be a lot of fun.
Well, you should know I put on the registration form, only familiar, friendly faces are allowed at my lunch date. So I did that just for
Exactly.
you. Wendy, you are a number of things. You are a talent acquisition pro. You are a blogger. You host Twitter chats, which you're going to have to school me on because I'm still catching up on what Twitter chats are. You're a podcast host. And I came to you and I said, okay, given all of that, what do you want to talk about? You know, what are you passionate about? And you've entitled our conversation today, Shouting into the Wind, Finding Your Voice in a World of Noise. Why was that specific topic exciting to you?
You know, it's something that I've been kind of passionate about for the past few years when I really got into writing again. That was kind of one of the things I dreamed of being when I was a child is writing. Loved Laura Ingalls Wilder, wanted to, write that, but who wants to read about a kid growing up in the 80s is kind of what I thought. Maybe now it's quaint again. But I'd started writing and I didn't really want to write about HR because I thought, who wants to hear from me? Who wants to hear from someone who's not a CEO, who's not a director, who doesn't have that title behind her name? I've never had one of those titles. I really don't want one, I'll be honest with that, because of what comes along with that I don't, is not my forte. But the more I wrote and the more I participated in like Twitter chats and then John and I starting the podcast and all of that, it kind of got me thinking about how we don't hear from the practitioners very much. We don't hear from the people that are in the trenches and in the weeds doing all of that that day-to-day work, making the strategy come to life. And we need to hear from people who are doing the work, not just in HR, but across business. We need to hear more of those voices. And so any way that I can encourage people to do that, I really want to do some more of that as well. I'm actually speaking to a women's group this afternoon on a very similar topic, and encouraging them, women in wider business here in South Dakota. We need your voices. And even though sometimes it can feel like you're just shouting into the wind, you're shouting into a brick wall, keeping at it and getting that encouragement and finding a community to be able to talk with things through and talk about ideas and how to make it work and how to get it up through your organization to make things happen. We can do that from wherever you are in the organization. And I just want to encourage more people to do that.
Excellent. Well, then this is going to be a great use of our time. If you're with us today, put a Y in the chat area if you think that this is a valuable way for us to spend the next 22 minutes discussing discussing what Wendy has just set up. Oh, Wendy, I feel I have this whole list of questions for you, just stuff that I'm inspired. And then I look behind you and I see this Captain America shield. And my wife and I have just gotten through 24 chronologically ordered Marvel movies.
Nice.
And I'm a Frisbee enthusiast myself. Maybe not too many people know this about me. And I've been looking for a Captain America Frisbee as my own shield because he uses his shield as a Frisbee on occasion. Mm-hmm. And then I see this thing behind you and I so wish we were neighbors so I could come steal it.
You could steal it. It is my husband's. I have to be honest with that. and I have thought about, doing the fake backgrounds, but I've had it in the back of so many video calls and webinars and such. It's kind of my I think it's my thing now, and I have to have, and R2D2 and Super Grover,
of course,
to round out who's in my household.
Yeah, great. Helping them find their voices, I'm sure. Yes. So I put together a quick poll for our audience to engage them right off the bat. And by the way, the chat is just flying. There's so much coming through. I don't know if I'm going to see it all, but you really struck a nerve with Little House on the Prairie. You got a whole bunch of people chime in saying that they appreciate that TV show. I just saw a bit on it actually coincidentally the other day, and Michael Landon. I was like, oh my gosh, there's a throwback.
Wow, yeah, that's going way back. And I've gotten more into the books. Laura did live in South Dakota for many years, and a few years ago, some folks that do research on her rewrote her, took her like original manuscript of Pioneer Girl and put it into this beautiful hardbound book with annotations and details and kind of going back and forth when Laura was writing it and talking with her daughter back and forth. It's a fascinating book. If you guys have any interest at all in the writing process or in Laura Ingalls Wilder, I would highly recommend this book. I'll pull the title out and share it. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it's fascinating. Just even getting into that writing process.
See, you never know when you show up for a lunch date. You think you're showing up for one thing and you get all this additional information that is just so valuable. So I'm going to share the quick poll that I put together. The question I ask is, what do you see as your biggest challenge? It's a multiple choice. Number 1, finding something to say. 2, saying it. Or 3, getting your sourdough crumb just right. My wife is the sourdough baker among the two of us, and every time it comes out, she has to check the crumb. And I thought crumb was something very different than apparently it is with sourdough.
Sourdough is a challenge. Oh, yeah. We have a glorious baker here in Brookings that does it, and you get fresh sourdough at the farmer's market every Saturday morning. I don't even try anymore. Like, no. Yeah, no. I'm never.
I can already tell the challenge for us is going to be actually staying on topic with all of these other things that we can talk about, right? But with 18 minutes left, I want to make sure that we're serving people what they expected to hear when they showed up. So, the way these conversations tend to go is I'd love to spend a little bit of time talking through the challenges that you feel people have faced, our attendees, many of whom are HR professionals, many are just leaders at various levels of their organization, and a handful are also in between meaningful job opportunities. What are some of the challenges that you have experienced that people tend to face when it comes to finding their voice in this noisy world?
I think the same thing that makes it easier is making it harder is, social media. That everyone has a blog, everyone has a podcast, everyone is doing these things. So how do you stand out? How do you put out what's meaningful to you that's going to resonate with other people? And, we've all had those great posts that you think, if you're a writer, you have a great post or you have a great podcast or you have something that you're like, this is going to resonate with people and people are going to love this. And it's crickets behind it. And then like I remember one time I threw up a post because I was like, I haven't posted anything in a while. There was some talk on Twitter about why you love HR. So I threw up a throwaway post that was, I didn't feel like I didn't put any much thought into it, and people loved it. It was like my most liked LinkedIn post. People were sharing it, and you don't know what's going to hit people, and so sometimes that can be intimidating to say, you put yourself out there, and this is something I love, but no one else is going to like it, and this is something that's okay, and everybody loves it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what line to walk. I don't
Yeah.
know where to go. So I think that's challenging. And even, so I've been blogging now again for 3-4 years. We've been podcasting for 2 years. And there's still times when I have that struggle of, I have a post right now that I'm like, it's almost there. It's not quite there. Do I want to share it? I should just put it out there. And, it's one of those, I really just need to remember, put it out there, because one of the great things about this community and the social media community is most people are not going to troll what you're saying. They're not going to put a bunch of hate out there. They're going to encourage you. And, I think too, we're always good at giving, we're much better at it here than in our work lives, I'll say that, of giving good constructive feedback so people don't walk away feeling defeated. We do a terrible job of it. I'm broadly speaking here, but we do a terrible job of it in the office, and helping people feel lifted up, like, okay, I can do better. I want to do better. So I think that's one of those things on the social side. As much crap is out there,
Mhm.
there's still a lot of support. There's still a lot of love. And so, I it's hard to do. I really get it. But, if you're going to put something out there, tag any of the people on this call. I would tag any of these people, and I know that they would support me and say, oh, I love that you said this, but what about this? And you can have an ongoing conversation with it. So I get it. I get that, you know, putting yourself out there, but it is worth it.
Seth Godin, if anyone follows Seth Godin, who I don't know if he's
Yeah.
a self-described marketing guru, but I mean, just his stuff is really so inspiring. I share quite a bit of his
Mhm.
blogging. His talks about just ship, just get it out there. And I've shared on a lunch date in the past that somebody has said along the way that if you aren't embarrassed by the stuff that you first put out there, you waited too long to put it out there, right? And it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you intentionally produce things that you're going to be embarrassed by, but as you look back on how you've evolved and how you've been able to polish your story and tell your story and articulate it in compelling ways, that in the beginning, nobody's getting it just right. Nobody
Right.
has it completely polished, but you're doing something. So it's almost a matter of building this habit of seeing ourselves as worthy of sharing something, of having a voice,
Yes.
telling a story, understanding what that story is, but then articulating that story to other people, which can be a big piece of the puzzle. I'm going to end our poll really quick and share it. And we have 48% of the people saying finding the thing to say is the hard part. 26% say saying it, and then 26% are talking about sourdough. And I get it. I mean, it's a struggle.
Yeah.
So we have this piece of, forget about actually getting to the point where I'm saying it myself, either via Twitter chats or, a blog that I've written or a podcast I'm a part of, or simply just speaking out loud to another person. I don't even know what I have to say to begin with,
Yeah.
which leads me to something I think you were alluding to earlier, although you didn't say it, this idea of the imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Right? Like, who am I to write this book? Or I know there's somebody who's joining us that's writing her first book, Julie Turney.
Yes.
Who am I to write this book? Who am I to put up this blog post? Who am I to speak up at work? Who am I to assert what we should be doing from a diversity, equity, and inclusion perspective? I mean, the list goes on and on, right? Talk to
Mhm.
me, if you would, about how either your own experience with the imposter syndrome, or just how you think that factors into this conversation.
Oh my gosh, yes. Every day I feel like I deal with it a little bit. who am I that Julie invited me to add something to her book? Who am I that all these people should be joining in and having this conversation with us and want to hear what I have to say? I think that's, again, that kind of goes into we wait for that validation of that official title, that someone else is telling us that, yes, you are worthy, your story is worthy of being told. Kind of, I went back to, when I was a kid, wanted to be Laura Ingalls Wilder, but nobody wants to read about a kid in the 80s. But people do, they want to hear these stories. That's Elena Valentine said it on HR Wonder Woman, the shortest distance between two people is a story.
Yeah.
And that's how we make those connections, is telling our stories, telling each other those things, and helping people get through some of those rough times that we have. And if this is not the roughest time most of us have been through, I don't know. And you don't have to be a gifted storyteller to do it. You just have to start. And Ann Tompkinson, who does HR Wonder Woman with me, she and I were talking about it, and it's one little step at a time. None of us can do it all at once, and so it's sharing something you think on Twitter or LinkedIn or in a conversation with somebody, and each time you take that step, you're going to get better at it. You may enjoy it more, or you'll find the way that you enjoy. Because I don't expect everyone to love Twitter like I do. I don't expect everyone to be able to do a podcast. But how do you can't expect to write the book at once. You have to do it one step at a time. Nobody runs a marathon from day one. And I'm not a runner, but you have to start with one step, and that's how you do it. And and being open to people not just disagreeing with you, but being open to the conversation of how to improve and how to be better. I think that's kind of where we get stuck in the imposter syndrome, is we don't think we can get better. We don't think we can get there.
It's like a fixed mindset almost.
Yeah.
One of the greatest things that has come out of this series, this lunch date series that I've been doing since April, is, again, I choose my guests and they choose the topics of our conversation. Almost every single topic has come back in some way to meaningful connection, which is something that I'm big on. Yeah. It's almost like I had planned it. I mean, you would think that I had orchestrated several months, of this theme on meaningful connection, right? I wish I could take credit for that. It just sort of naturally happen that way. And I think this is another example. As I listen, and again, I'm not as well versed when it comes to the Twitter chats, and I know that's on me to learn more about, but certainly as I listen to you and John in the HR Social Hour half-hour podcast, which is a mouthful, and you ask, what people have in their glass, for example, so I'm drinking carbonated water here, or you ask other things about, if I was just listening to one today with Jay Pawlacki, who's with us, a recent guest of yours, and you asked her if there was a Jay Pawlacki day, what would it entail? Mm-hmm. It really strikes me that part of finding your voice, and let me know if I'm accurate here, is also bringing this innate curiosity, this almost drive or unsatiable craving to really connect meaningfully with people, to understand who they are and how they're wired and what they need and what they struggle with and what they're celebrating. I think you and John do that on your podcast. What would you say that the role, what would you say about the role that meaningful connection plays in your ability to find and articulate your story?
It's what we do, and it's, if we weren't finding that meaningful connection, we would have stopped a long time ago. It has to bring meaning. It has to mean something. And, we say, we've said it numerous times, once this stops being fun, that's when we know we're done. And it hasn't stopped being fun yet. Yeah. Because there's so many people to meet, and there's so many worthwhile people to meet. And, we have people that come to us knowing nothing about the social hour and ask to be on the show. And we're just like, join the community. That's the very first thing. If you want to be on our show, you have to be a part of our community, or you can pay us. And we're not in this to make money, but we have built a community, and we are very jealous of that community and protective of that community and who we want you to know and meet. And so, if we're bringing somebody to you, even if it is a vendor, that they're about that meaningful connection too. You can know just because we're inviting them in. Again, even if they're paying us, they're still meeting that minimum qualification of wanting to build relationships with people. It's going to come through in that whatever they're selling, that is about a relationship. And we've got some people coming on. It is September. In September and October, a vendor that we're going to talk with about employee engagement and recognition, and how you can do that with remote employees. And we know that they're in the business of caring. They're not just in the business of coming to sell something. Or they wouldn't come to us. They wouldn't say, hey, we want to do this, and we are gonna, it's worth the money to us. So I think that tells you a little something as well. But it really is about that heartfelt, that connection, and caring about the people that are part of the community. We're not going to agree on everything, and we might not like you all the time. Yeah. Just like in family, I tell my girls that all the time. You don't have to like each other, but every day you need to wake up and make the choice to love each other.
Yeah. I want to underscore what you're saying by encouraging people to, if you're not on gallery view right now, to hover over the top right corner of your screen and click on gallery view. There are so many faces with us today that I have learned about through your podcast, that I have met at different conferences, that I've seen active on social media and have never met face-to-face. Tina Marie Woolfield, who started HR Unite in Michigan, is just one of my closest colleagues. Never met her face-to-face. That meaningful connection, though, has brought us all together in this space. To be able to look at and say, oh, they're not just attendees at today's lunch date, but these are friends that I have made, throughout the country and beyond the country. I know your reach for the podcast goes, at one point you were tallying the number of countries you were in. Are you still doing that at this point?
We are. John recently posted, I think Botswana just joined, which was fantastic. I mean, these countries it's unbelievable to me, because, and this is the narrow American mind that I have. I can't imagine listening to a podcast from another country. It just wouldn't occur to me. So these people are finding us, and they're in different countries. They speak different languages. So how they're getting, I assume they speak some amount of English. I don't know if there are translators that translate our podcast for them. But it's amazing that, and they're coming back. Yeah. It's very rare that a country is a one and done. That they continue to download, and we're so excited. I mean, we're working to get time scheduled with a couple of folks who have been joining the Twitter chat in the middle of the night. They're showing up at 2 a.m. midnight from Europe to join, and then we have friends in India that pop in first thing in the morning and respond to the Twitter chat, which again, their want to be the connection of that to the community is fantastic. And so we're trying to figure out, how do we record with them, because we don't want them to have to get up in the middle of the night to record with us. Yeah. So trying to figure out time zones to do that, which happy to, I'll give up a Saturday morning if it means I get to talk to Francisco, for an hour and get him on the podcast. I'll give up my Saturday morning for that. I'll give up my Saturday afternoon, whatever we can make work. So,
yeah. Well, we are, as you can imagine, well, you don't have to imagine, you can look at your clock. We're already at just about at 12:30. Right. Do you have, if you were to share your number one tip that people can take away to become more comfortable either in determining what their story is or being able to tell it, to be able to find their voice and articulate that story, what would be your number one tip?
Start. Just start. Wherever you are, start. If you want to hide behind a computer and be on Twitter, do it. If it's starting with a Zoom lunch date, if it's an in-person lunch date, I won't judge. Even now, if you have someone you can meet in person and, you know, sit 6 feet away and have a wonderful cup of coffee with, and start sharing your story and start sharing and making those connections, you know, do it. Just, it's not as daunting if you just look at it as one step at a time, one
Yeah.
tweet at a time, one coffee at a time.
That's very well put. So much is like that. Professional networking, you know, and we could go on and on. It's just saying, okay, I don't know about getting all the way there, but where can I start, and having that
Yeah.
one step, and just start is what you're saying, sort of become familiar with building that habit, try it on for size, see what sounds right, what doesn't feel right, change the way you say it next time.
Yeah.
I love it. Wendy, this has been a great conversation. I wish we had 10 times as much
Went so
time
fast.
to have it. It always does. People are going to want to find you, learn more about the Twitter chat that you do every Sunday, your podcast, additional, you know, perspective that you have on this topic. Where is the best place for people to go to find you online?
Best way is going to be Twitter. I am Wendell93 on Twitter. Also happy to connect on LinkedIn. If you search for Wendy R.H. Dailey, you will find me. Those are going to be the top two places that you'll find me. And I'm happy to connect. I pretty much connect with everybody on LinkedIn, unless you're very obviously a salesperson. But I'm one of those where I'll connect and I'll disconnect later, or I'll just ignore you.
Yeah. I love how transparent you are. I am going to follow up, by the way, with any resources that you've mentioned, links to the stuff that you're doing. I will follow up via email to all attendees who joined us today. And I'm seeing Laura and Denise and some other friends in there, Randall, who's been at so many of these. I get such a kick out of the people who join us for this conversation. If you enjoyed today's lunch date, and I'm sure you have, and you've been inspired just as much as I have, I hope you'll go back to harmonyinsights.com/lunch dates. Not only go and register for upcoming dates, but also share that URL with other people with the hashtag lunch date. That really helps us spread the word about what we're doing. And there's only so much marketing that I'm able to do, and really spreading the word with your help is what helps people find out about us. This coming Thursday, on a similar theme with Lotus Buckner, our career coach, HR practitioner, finding the courage to stand out in a world that wants you to fit in. We're going to get a slightly different perspective on a similar topic. So I'm really excited to see how Lotus helps round out this conversation, perhaps. Next Thursday, Brendan Nichols, who's the president of HRA of Greater Oak Brook here in the Chicago area, is going to talk about how to create a growth mindset, given his experience that he has. I have a couple coming up a little bit down the road with Terry Bean, who I met through Tina Marie Woolfield, and Karen Allen, who's a TEDx speaker. I am so excited for the two of them. So harmonyinsights.com/lunch dates. Look at the conversations coming up with Terry Bean and Karen Allen, because those are two that you're certainly not going to want to miss. If you need to go about your afternoon, you can do so with our blessing. Our goal is to take 30 minutes here so that you are more inspired to do your best work in your afternoon. That's why I started doing it, kind of selfishly, and then other people have said that they found that same inspiration. If you want to stick around, we're going to have a few additional minutes with Wendy to have you unmute yourself and offer a contribution or ask a question. In the meantime, Wendy, let me just reiterate how valuable this conversation has been. I really appreciate you spending time with us today.
It was a lot of fun. I love talking about this. I love, sharing it, because it's that imposter syndrome is real, and we just need to encourage each other to speak up and step out so that we can hear more voices out there.